The grand observation chamber of the Galactic Federation's Stellar Watch fell silent as senior observer Zilix's crystalline appendages trembled with alarm. The massive holographic display dominating the chamber's center showed something unprecedented. An unregistered vessel approaching from the unexplored sectors of the Orion Arm. Impossible, Zilix whispered, their voice crystals resonating with uncertainty. No unregistered species has entered Federation space in over 3 centuries. The vessel's signature was unlike anything in their extensive databases, where Federation ships glowed with the familiar azure streams of quantum drive emissions. This craft seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it, leaving distortion patterns that their most advanced sensors struggle to interpret. First Speaker Veneth glided forward on their gravity cushion, their normally iridescent scales dulled with concern. What do our analysis matrices tell us about their capabilities? That's the troubling part, First Speaker. Zilix manipulated the holographic controls with practiced precision, expanding the vessel's sensor profile. By all standard metrics, this ship shouldn't be capable of interstellar travel. Its energy emissions are minimal, its size is modest, and yet, they gestured at the velocity readings. It's moving at speeds that should require at least 10 times the power output we're detecting. The chamber's ambient lighting shifted to a warning amber as more data streamed in. The vessel's hull composition was equally baffling. A material that seemed to absorb or deflect their most sophisticated scanning beams. Its design spoke of function over form, with none of the artistic flourishes that marked civilized species ships. This was a vessel built for purpose, not ceremony. We're detecting weapons systems, announced Junior Observer Crix, their tendrils wrapping nervously around their console. But they're integrated into the hull structure in ways we've never seen. No external ports or missile tubes. It's as if the entire ship is both weapon and shield. First Speaker Veneth's expression darkened. Have they responded to standard greeting protocols? No, First Speaker. But they're not jamming our signals either. It's as if. Zilix paused, double-checking their readings. It's as if they're using communication frequencies we haven't even discovered yet. The chamber's doors parted with a whisper as Security Director Malachi entered, their cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the amber light. As the Federation's foremost expert on emerging species, their presence underscored the gravity of the situation. Tell me everything, Malachi commanded, their artificial eyes already processing the sensor data. The vessel entered our space approximately 6 hours ago, Zilix reported. It's maintaining a direct course toward the Centauri Gateway. No deviation, no attempt at stealth. They either don't know our protocols, or they don't care, Malachi finished. Have we identified their origin? Crix projected a new set of coordinates. Based on their trajectory, they came from a system we designated as developmentally isolated 3 centuries ago. A G-type star with a promising but primitive species that had barely achieved atmospheric flight. They called their world Earth. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Every Federation member knew the protocols for developmentally isolated species. They were to be left alone until they achieved standardized technological benchmarks and initiated contact themselves. But no species had ever progressed from atmospheric flight to this level of technology in mere centuries. It should have taken millennia. How? First Speaker Veneth demanded. How did we miss this level of advancement? Malachi's cybernetic systems whirred as they processed historical data. Because we were looking for the wrong signs. We expected them to follow the standard technological progression. Quantum physics, then drive theory, then field manipulation. But these readings, they gestured at the holographic display. They found different paths to the same destinations. They solved problems we never even considered problems. The vessel's image suddenly shifted, its hull seeming to ripple like water. Before anyone could react, it had crossed 50 light-minutes of space in an instant, appearing just outside the Centauri Gateway's security perimeter. Impossible, Crix exclaimed. Nothing can move that fast without a jump drive signature. Nothing we know of, Malachi corrected. We're dealing with a species that developed in isolation, forced to innovate without access to established scientific principles. They didn't follow our rules because they never knew them. A new alert flashed across the holographic display. The vessel was broadcasting, not on any standard Federation frequency, but across the entire electromagnetic spectrum in perfectly encoded quantum packets. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Hyperion," a calm voice announced in flawless Federation standard. "We know you've detected us. We know you're watching. And we know about the threat approaching from the galactic core. We're here to help, whether you want it or not." The chamber erupted in chaos as the implications sank in. The approaching threat from the galactic core was the Federation's most closely guarded secret, something only the highest levels of leadership knew about. Yet these humans had somehow discovered it from beyond Federation space. How? First Speaker Veneth demanded. How could they know? Because, Malachi said quietly, their cybernetic eyes detecting patterns no organic being could see. They've already encountered it. Look at their ship design. It's built specifically to combat the threat we've only theorized about. These humans haven't just been developing in isolation. They've been fighting a war we didn't even know had begun. The Hyperion hung in space like a dark promise, its very existence challenging everything the Federation thought they knew about technological progress and species development. And as Captain Chen's words echoed through the chamber, one thing became clear. The galaxy was about to change forever. "You have 1 hour to respond," Chen's voice continued, unwavering. "After that, we proceed with or without your cooperation. The stakes are too high for diplomatic niceties." First Speaker Veneth turned to Malachi, their scales now pale with worry. "What do you recommend?" "We listen," Malachi replied simply. "Because if they've managed this level of advancement in isolation, imagine what they might achieve with allies." As the chamber's occupants stared at the mysterious human vessel, none could shake the feeling that they were witnessing not just first contact, but the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The Federation's Emergency Council chamber hummed with tension as holographic feeds showed the Hyperion maintaining its position near the Centauri Gateway. Security Director Malachi's cybernetic systems processed countless data streams, while First Speaker Veneth conducted heated discussions with the assembled representatives of 30 spatial sectors. "We cannot simply allow them to dictate terms," declared Representative Thex of the Regilian Confederation, their phosphorescent tentacles flaring with indignation. "Who knows what primitive warfare techniques these humans might employ?" Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared above the central platform, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the agitated council members. The humans had somehow bypassed all of the Federation's communication security protocols, treating their most advanced encryption as if it were transparent. "With respect, Representative Thex," Chen said, "calling us primitive while we're broadcasting through your quantum-secured networks might be somewhat contradictory." A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth. "As for warfare techniques, we hope to avoid demonstrations." Malachi stepped forward, their artificial eyes whirring as they analyzed Chen's transmission. "Captain, your ship's capabilities are unprecedented. Our readings suggest you're using technologies that violate several laws of physics as we understand them." "No laws violated, Director Malachi," Chen replied. "We just found different books to read them from." She gestured, and a series of complex equations appeared in the air around her. "Your civilization developed quantum mechanics from observing particle behavior. We started by questioning why particles behave at all." The equations shifted, forming patterns that made several scientific advisors gasp. It wasn't just new technology. It was an entirely different approach to understanding the universe itself. "While you were perfecting quantum drives," Chen continued, "we were learning to fold space. While you were developing energy shields, we figured out how to make energy simply ignore us. Different paths, different solutions." First Speaker Veneth raised their crystalline appendages in a gesture of puzzlement. But why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue your isolated development? Chen's expression grew serious. Because what's coming from the Galactic Core doesn't care about diplomatic protocols or technological hierarchies. The Void Hive doesn't negotiate. The chamber fell silent. The Void Hive, the cryptic threat that Federation deep space probes had detected but never fully understood. Massive structures of unknown origin, moving between the stars, consuming everything in their path. How do you know this name? Malachi demanded. Our own reports only identified them as Anomaly 147. Chen's hologram expanded, showing footage that made several council members recoil. Massive fractal pattern structures consuming entire star systems, breaking down matter at the quantum level. We encountered a scout cluster 8 years ago, she explained. It found Earth while searching for resources. We weren't ready. We weren't unified. We were still fighting among ourselves over trivial terrestrial concerns. Her eyes hardened with remembered pain. But nothing unifies a species quite like an existential threat. The footage shifted, showing humanity's response. Cities transformed into research centers, nations pooling resources, the entire species pivoting from internal conflict to survival and innovation. We lost our moon, Chen said quietly. The hive consumed it while we watched, helpless. But we learned. We adapted. We took what we knew about physics, threw out all our assumptions and started over. Because we had to. New images appeared. Human ships employing technologies that seemed to defy reality itself. Vessels phasing through solid matter. Weapons that didn't so much destroy as simply erase their targets from existence. Defensive systems that bent probability itself. Impossible, whispered one of the scientific advisors. The energy requirements alone. Impossible is what happens when you follow the same rules as everyone else, Chen countered. We didn't have the luxury of established scientific principles. We had to innovate or die. Malachi's cybernetic systems were practically overloading trying to analyze the human technologies. Your entire species achieved this in just 8 years. Amazing what we can do when we stop fighting each other and start fighting extinction. Chen's hologram walked around the chamber, examining the assembled representatives. But the hive we fought was just a scout cluster. What's coming now is the main swarm. We tracked it, studied it, and realized it's not just heading for Earth. It's going to consume this entire sector of the galaxy. First Speaker Veneth's scales had paled to an almost translucent state. Why should we trust you? How do we know you're not simply using this threat to infiltrate our society? Chen smiled again, but this time there was a sadness to it. Because right now, 3 of my ships are engaging a hive splinter cell near your Arcturus research station. The station you evacuated 2 days ago because of unexpected radiation readings. The chamber's main display switched to a live feed from Arcturus. True to Chen's words, 3 human vessels were engaged in combat with something that seemed to defy description. A mass of geometric patterns that ate light itself. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their weapons tearing holes in reality to strike at the hive structures. We could have let it consume the station, Chen said softly. Could have let you learn about the hive the hard way like we did. But that's not who we are. We're offering our help not because we have to, but because we should. Because facing extinction taught us something your advanced civilization seems to have forgotten. We're all in this together. The chamber erupted in discussion as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd developed it specifically to combat a threat the Federation had barely begun to understand. Malachi stepped closer to Chen's hologram, their cybernetic systems finally starting to comprehend the scope of human advancement. You've been protecting us, they said. All this time, while we dismissed your species as primitive. Someone had to. Chen replied simply. Now shall we discuss how to save the galaxy, or would you like to continue debating our primitiveness? As the Federation Council watched the human ships systematically dismantle a hive splinter cell, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted irreversibly. The humans hadn't just caught up to Federation technology. They'd surpassed it in ways no one had imagined possible. And now, facing an enemy that threatened all life, their hidden strength might be the galaxy's only hope. The command deck of the Federation flagship Eternal Dawn had been transformed. Where ornate holographic displays once showed star charts and trade routes, now stark representations of void hive movements dominated the space. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the assembled Federation commanders, her presence drawing a mix of awe and lingering suspicion. The hive operates on principles you won't find in any physics textbook, Chen explained, manipulating the holographic display with practiced ease. They don't just consume matter. They consume possibility itself. Every system they devour becomes a blank spot in reality's fabric. Security Director Malachi's cybernetic systems recorded everything, trying to make sense of the data streams. Our long-range sensors detected similar anomalies, but we interpreted them as natural phenomena. Nothing natural about them, Chen replied, expanding the display to show the hive's fractal patterns. They're systematic, purposeful. Each geometric structure serves a specific function in their consumption process. We learned that the hard way. The display shifted to show Earth's moon, or rather, the void where it had been. The absence wasn't just physical. It was as if that region of space had forgotten how to exist. First Speaker Veneth glided forward, their scales shimmering with concern. How do you fight something that unmakes reality itself? A slight smile crossed Chen's face. You start by unmaking their unmaking. She nodded to her first officer, Dr. Marcus Rivera, who had been quietly working at a console. The display changed, showing the interior of a human laboratory. Federation scientists leaned forward, trying to comprehend the bizarre equipment. Where their own technology favored crystal matrices and quantum harmonics, the human devices seemed to defy conventional design. Pieces that shouldn't fit together merged seamlessly, creating patterns that hurt to look at. We call it the probability engine, Rivera explained, his hands moving through complex gestures that altered the display. Conventional weapons are useless against the hive because they operate within expected parameters of reality. So we built something that operates outside those parameters. Impossible, declared Chief Scientist Zix, their crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. You cannot simply ignore fundamental constants. Actually, Rivera countered, you can, if you convince reality that it forgot to carry the two. He brought up a series of equations that made several Federation scientists clutch their heads in pain. The universe runs on mathematics, but mathematics runs on assumptions. Change the assumptions, and you change the rules, Chen finished. A hive consumes possibility. Our engines create new ones. It's not about matching their power. It's about introducing variables they can't process. The display showed footage from the recent battle at Arcturus. The human ships hadn't just fought the hive. They had introduced chaos into its ordered patterns, creating paradoxes that forced the geometric structures to collapse in on themselves. We need your help, Chen continued, her tone growing serious. Our technology works, but our resources are limited. The main swarm is larger than anything we've faced before. If we're going to stop it, we need to combine our approaches. Malachi stepped forward, their artificial eyes whirring as they processed the implications. You want to integrate human probability manipulation with Federation quantum systems. Exactly. Chen gestured, and new schematics appeared. Your quantum matrices are the most stable we've ever seen. If we can use them as a foundation for our probability engines, you could amplify the effect exponentially, Rivera finished. Create a large-scale reality revision that would disrupt the entire swarm at once. The Federation commanders exchanged uncertain looks. Everything they knew about physics, about the proper way to develop technology, screamed that this was wrong. But the evidence of human success was undeniable. There's something you're not telling us, Malachi observed, their cybernetic systems detecting subtle patterns in Chen's behavior. Chen was quiet for a moment. The probability engine. it doesn't just affect the hive. Each use changes the operators too. Small things at first, altered memories, shifted perspectives. But with an amplification of this scale, you're asking us to risk not just our ships and crews, first speaker Veneth realized, but our very understanding of reality. Yes, Chen admitted, because the alternative is having no reality left to understand. The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just offering advanced technology. They were offering to change the fundamental nature of existence itself. A new alert suddenly blared through the ship. The main display shifted to show a massive distortion approaching the Centauri gateway, a high scout force larger than any previously encountered. Time to decide, Chen said quietly. We can retreat, maintain our separate approaches, and watch as the hive consumes everything sector by sector. Or we can work together and show them that reality isn't theirs to unmake. First speaker Veneth's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors before settling on a decisive hue. What do you need from us? Chen's smile returned, fierce and determined. Everything you've got. Because we're about to rewrite the rules of the universe. The next hours were a blur of activity as human engineers worked alongside Federation technicians, integrating technologies that should never have been compatible. The elegant crystal matrices of Federation ships began to pulse with impossible energies as probability engines were linked to quantum cores. As the Hive Force approached, Captain Chen stood on the Eternal Dawn's command deck, watching the impossible merger of human and Federation technology come to life around her. They were about to attempt something that violated every known law of physics, and their only advantage was that the laws themselves weren't quite sure what to make of it. All ships report ready, Malachi announced, their cybernetic systems now partially integrated with the human probability networks. Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the approaching geometric patterns of the hive. Then let's show them what happens when you corner two species who refuse to accept impossibility as an answer. The battle that followed would rewrite more than just the rules of physics. It would rewrite the relationship between humanity and the Federation forever, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology. It's the willingness to imagine beyond its limits. Reality rippled like water as the combined human Federation fleet faced the approaching void hive. The Eternal Dawn's command deck thrummed with energies that shouldn't exist, its crystalline displays showing impossibilities made real by human innovation and Federation precision. Captain Chen watched as the geometric patterns of the Hive Scout Force twisted through space, their fractal tendrils reaching toward the defended systems. Behind her, Dr. Rivera monitored the integrated probability engines, his hands dancing through holographic controls that altered the fabric of space itself. Multiple hive structures approaching quantum threshold, Malachi reported, their cybernetic systems struggling to process the conflicting data streams. They're attempting to initiate their consumption sequence. Not this time, Chen murmured. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, execute Protocol Pandora. Let's show them what happens when you mix human chaos with Federation order. The Federation ships, their elegant hulls now housing human probability engines, moved into formation. Where once they would have maintained perfect geometric patterns, now they arranged themselves in configurations that seemed random, but followed a deeper, stranger logic. Probability matrices at full power, Rivera announced. Federation quantum cores are stable and synchronized. We're ready to rewrite some rules. The hive struck first, its structures unfolding into impossible shapes that began to erase reality itself. Space turned inside out around their point of contact, matter and energy simply ceasing to exist. But this time, something was different. Where the hive's entropy field met the fleet's defense line, reality didn't just resist. It rewrote itself. The human probability engines, amplified by Federation quantum matrices, created new possibilities faster than the hive could consume them. It's working. First speaker Veneth breathed, their scales shimmering with awe. They can't process the variable outcomes we're generating. Chen nodded grimly. That's just the beginning. All ships, initiate Phase 2. The fleet's formation shifted again, and this time the changes went deeper than mere positioning. The probability engines weren't just creating new possibilities, they were changing the rules about what possibilities could exist. Federation crew members gasped as their memories shifted, timelines blending and reforming. Some remembered childhoods on worlds that had never existed, others recalled victories in battles yet to be fought. The human crews, more accustomed to probability manipulation, helped anchor their allies in the shifting seas of reality. The Hive is attempting to adapt. Malachi reported, their artificial eyes recording changes that organic minds could barely comprehend. They're trying to consume our new probabilities. Let them try, Rivera said with a fierce grin. Sometimes the best defense is to be too impossible to understand. The battle transformed into something beyond conventional combat. Where the Hive attempted to impose order and entropy, the fleet responded with calculated chaos. Human ingenuity merged with Federation precision, creating patterns of possibility that even the reality-devouring Hive couldn't digest. But the strain was beginning to show. Crystal displays cracked under the pressure of containing paradoxes. Crew members struggled with memories that rewrote themselves mid-thought. Reality itself groaned under the weight of too many possibilities existing at once. "We need to end this now," Chen declared, seeing the toll it was taking on both ships and crews. "All ships prepare for Protocol Omega." "Captain," Rivera warned, "if we push the probability engines any harder while linked to the quantum cores, we might break reality itself," Chen finished. "But if we don't, there won't be any reality left to break. Execute the protocol." The combined fleet moved as one, their formation shifting into a pattern that existed in 5 dimensions at once. The probability engines spun up to maximum power, Federation quantum cores channeling energies that shouldn't exist into configurations that couldn't exist. And for a moment, everything changed. Past, present, and future merged and separated. Crew members lived lifetimes in seconds, died deaths that never happened, achieved victories in wars yet to be fought. The Hive's geometric patterns twisted in on themselves, trying to consume possibilities that refused to follow any rules they could understand. Then, with a sound that wasn't a sound, reality snapped back into place. Where the Hive scout force had been, now there was something else. Not emptiness, not destruction, but possibility itself given form. A region of space where the rules were more suggestions than laws, where cause and effect played cards together and occasionally cheated. Did we? First speaker Veneth struggled to form words with memories of lives they had and hadn't lived competing in their mind. Did we win? Chen checked the readings, confirmation coming from both human and Federation sensors. We did more than win. We showed them something they couldn't consume. A reality that refuses to play by anyone's rules but its own. The victory had come at a price. Every crew member now carried memories of multiple timelines, their very identities shifted by exposure to raw probability. The ships themselves had been changed, their structures now existing in states that quantum physics insisted were impossible. But they had proven something unprecedented, that 2 species, approaching the universe from radically different perspectives, could combine their innovations to achieve the truly impossible. "The main swarm will come," Malachi noted, their cybernetic systems finally stabilizing after processing multiple simultaneous realities. "This was only a scout force." "Let them come," Chen replied, looking at the transformed space where the battle had been fought. "Because now we know something they don't. The universe isn't just stranger than they imagine. It's stranger than they can imagine. And we're here to prove it." As the fleet regrouped, human and Federation crews working together to stabilize their altered ships and minds, a new understanding emerged. They had done more than win a battle. They had changed the very nature of what was possible. And in doing so, they had forged a bond between their species that transcended conventional reality itself. 3 months after the battle at the Centauri Gateway, the great council chamber of the Federation capital station had changed. Where once crystalline walls reflected starlight in perfect patterns, now they occasionally rippled with possibilities, a permanent reminder of how reality itself had been transformed. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 200 spatial sectors, her uniform bearing both human and Federation insignia. The memories of multiple timelines still ghosted through her mind, as they did for everyone who had participated in the battle, but they had learned to integrate these parallel experiences into a broader understanding of existence. "The main Void Hive swarm has altered course," she announced, gesturing at the holographic display that showed the galaxy in both normal and probability space. "Our victory at Centauri Gateway didn't just defeat their scout force. It fundamentally changed their perception of this sector of space." Security Director Malachi stepped forward, their cybernetic systems now partially quantum organic after exposure to the probability engines. "The Hive operates on absolute certainties," they explained. "By introducing sustainable uncertainty into the fabric of reality itself, we've created a barrier they cannot process or overcome." First Speaker Veneth, their scales now sometimes shifting between colors that didn't exist before the battle, addressed the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads. The merger of human probability manipulation and Federation quantum science has changed more than just our technology. It has changed us, changed the very nature of space itself in this sector." The display shifted to show the region around the Centauri Gateway, now permanently altered by the battle. Ships passing through that space reported experiencing multiple possible futures simultaneously, emerging with enhanced understanding of reality's fluid nature. What should have been catastrophic had instead become transformative. Dr. Rivera, now heading the Joint Human Federation Research Initiative, brought up new data. "The altered space is stable," he reported. "More than that, it's expanding in controlled patterns. We're not just changing the rules of physics. We're teaching reality itself to be more flexible." Some would call this dangerous, Chen acknowledged, addressing the concerns she could see on many representatives' faces. "We've introduced uncertainty into a universe that operates on fundamental constants. But that's exactly why the Hive couldn't adapt. They can only consume what they can predict." The chamber's walls rippled again, matching the mood of its occupants. After the battle, they had discovered that the altered crew members had developed a subtle connection to spacetime itself. Reality responded to their collective consciousness, though always within the bounds of the new physics they had created. "The human ships have detected 3 more Hive scout forces approaching different sectors," Malachi reported. "But they're being cautious, probing, trying to understand what we've done to space itself." "Let them probe," Chen said with a confident smile. "Every scan, every test just exposes them to more impossibilities. We're not just defending territory anymore. We're teaching the universe new tricks." First Speaker Veneth raised their appendages for attention. "The Federation Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status, in light of not just their technological achievements, but their willingness to risk everything to defend life itself. We are offering full Federation membership with unique provisions." A murmur ran through the chamber. Full membership traditionally required centuries of diplomatic interaction and technological standardization. But then, humans had already proven they didn't follow standard paths of development. "We accept," Chen replied, "on one condition. The joint research continues, not just into defensive technologies, but into understanding what we've created together. The Hive showed us that the universe is stranger than we imagined. Now it's time to explore just how strange it can be." The display shifted one final time, showing the combined Human Federation fleet. The ships had been permanently changed by the battle, now existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. But rather than being weakened by this transformation, they had become something new. Vessels that could navigate the boundaries between possibility and reality. The Void Hive sought to consume possibility itself. Chen continued, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had lived multiple lives in service of a single cause. "Instead, they taught us how to create new ones. They wanted to end reality. We showed them how to expand it." As if in response to her words, the chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with new colors. probability waves creating patterns that reflected both order and chaos, structure and possibility. The Federation had prided itself on understanding the universe's laws. Humanity had shown them how to respectfully bend them. "We stand ready," Malachi announced, "not just to defend against the main swarm, but to continue this transformation. The hive consumes worlds by making them conform to absolute laws. We'll save them by teaching them to embrace uncertainty." First Speaker Venith rose, their form briefly shifting through multiple possible configurations before settling. "Then let this mark not just an alliance between species, but a new chapter in the story of life itself. Where once we sought to understand the universe's rules, now we shall write new ones together." The assembled representatives watched as reality rippled around them, the space station itself seeming to exist in multiple states at once. What should have been terrifying had become fascinating, a permanent reminder that the universe was not a fixed set of laws to be followed, but a canvas of possibilities waiting to be explored. As the session concluded, Chen stood with her Federation colleagues, watching the altered space through the chamber's windows. The stars themselves seemed to dance with new potential, each one representing not just what was, but what could be. "They're still coming," Rivera noted, referring to the main hive swarm. "And they'll be stronger, having learned from the Scout Force's defeat." "Good," Chen replied with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen multiple futures and chosen to create new ones. "Because so are we. And we got something they'll never understand. The power to believe in impossible things, then make them possible." The Federation capital station hung in space, its crystalline form occasionally shifting between states of reality, a beacon of what could be achieved when different species brought their unique perspectives together. They had not just survived an encounter with the Void Hive, they had transformed it into an opportunity to evolve. And somewhere in the depths of space, the main swarm approached, unaware that they were no longer facing two separate species with defined limitations, but a unified force that had learned to transcend reality itself. The real victory wasn't just surviving, it was discovering that the universe's greatest constant was its capacity for change.